Have you ever noticed that there are people who seem to attract opportunities without even trying? While you plan, work, and struggle, they simply receive invitations, ideas, business deals. It's as if life is playing on their team, while you feel like you're playing against it. But what do they have that's different? What is this invisible secret that makes reality bend for some people? That's what I'm going to reveal in this video. And if you stay until the end, you'll understand how to become the observer who manifests prosperity effortlessly. First, I want to tell you something you may have never stopped to think about. Everything that exists in the universe is energy in motion. Matter, thoughts, emotions. It's all vibration. But there's an even more fascinating detail. Energy doesn't organize itself on its own. It responds to the consciousness that observes it. This is the famous observer effect in quantum physics. In simple terms, the reality you are living in now is not just the result of external circumstances, but of the way you are observing the world. What you see is not just what exists, but what you are creating by observing it. Imagine an old-fashioned camera. If the lens is out of focus, the picture will come out blurry, even if the scenery is beautiful. The problem isn't the scenery, it's the observer. Now, when you adjust the lens, the beauty that was already there is revealed. The same thing happens with prosperity. It already exists, but you need to adjust your way of observing for it to manifest clearly in your life. And here is the key point. Prosperity is not created by effort, but by conscious focus. The more you focus on lack, the more lack expands. The more you observe possibilities, the more opportunities arise. Not because they appeared out of nowhere, but because they were always there, and you just couldn't see them. Now I want you to think about your current life. How many times have you received signs, invitations, or ideas that could have changed everything, but you ignored them because you were only observing problems? This is what happens to most people. They don't realize their way of observing is blocking abundance. The secret is this. If you want prosperity, you need to become the observer who sees abundance in every detail, even before it appears in numbers or results. This is what realigns your quantum field. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 simple practices to start manifesting prosperity effortlessly. But first, I want to ask for something. If this content is already making sense to you, subscribe to the channel now. By doing so, you help me spread this message and at the same time, ensure you won't miss the next videos in this series on the quantum leap and prosperity. Now that you understand that it's the observer who determines the outcome, we need to go deeper. What does it mean in practice to be a conscious observer? It means realizing that your thoughts and emotions are lenses. When you look at money with fear, you create a lens of scarcity. When you look at money with gratitude, you create a lens of abundance. And the universe doesn't respond to what you ask for, it responds to what you vibrate. Think of a radio station. If you tune into the wrong frequency, you'll hear static or music you don't like. Abundance is a station that already exists, broadcasting 24 hours a day. The problem is that you are often tuned into the station of worry, fear, and comparison. Prosperity hasn't ceased to exist, you just aren't listening to it. Now imagine what it would be like to change that station. Imagine waking up and instead of thinking another day of struggle, thinking another day of opportunities. Just this shift in observation already changes how your brain filters information. Scientists call this the Reticular Activating System. It's the part of the brain that selects what you will notice or ignore. If you observe life with a focus on lack, your brain will only notice what confirms scarcity. If you observe life with a focus on abundance, the same brain starts to find shortcuts, solutions, and synchronicities. And here is the first practical exercise. For the next 7 days when you wake up, take a 2-minute pause. Just 2 minutes. Close your eyes and ask yourself, if I were already prosperous, what would I notice today? This changes the lens through which you will observe everything for the next few hours. It may seem small, but this practice begins to train your mind to look for signs of prosperity that were always there. Now, I want to tell you a true story. A businessman had been trying for months to close deals, but everything seemed stuck. He told me that every day he woke up thinking, I need this client to pay my bills. He was observing only scarcity. When he changed his focus and began to observe the day's meetings as opportunities for connection, not survival, something shifted. In less than 2 weeks, he not only closed deals, but also received unexpected proposals that surpassed the value he had been chasing. The client didn't change. The market didn't change. What changed was the observer. And here is a key that almost no one realizes. Prosperity doesn't manifest when you solve all your problems. It manifests when you change the way you look at them. Because the problem itself is never the block. It's the meaning you give to the problem. If you look at a debt as proof that you are incapable, you block yourself. But if you look at the debt as an opportunity to reorganize your financial life and take control, you open the way for prosperity. The same fact, two different observations, two entirely distinct realities. Think about it. Maybe you don't need to change anything outside of you right now. Maybe the only necessary change is within. How are you observing your reality today? As a victim or as a creator? Now, I want to bring you the second practical exercise. This one is simple but powerful. Take a piece of paper and write down 3 situations in your current life that you consider financial problems. Then, for each one, write a new way of observing it. For example, problem: I don't earn enough at my job. New observation: this job is just a bridge. The universe is already showing me ways to expand my income. Do this with all the points. You will feel the difference immediately, because your energy will expand instead of contracting. And maybe you're thinking, but this is just changing words. No, this is changing vibration. And as Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Remember, the observer doesn't need to force prosperity. They just need to learn to see what already exists. From that point on, action becomes fluid, almost effortless. It's like rowing with the current instead of against it. Now a deep reflection. How many years of your life have you spent observing the world from a place of lack? How much has that cost you in lost opportunities? And what if, starting today, you changed the lens? Where could you be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Before moving on to the third practice, I want to ask for something. If this message is opening your mind, if you feel that you've already started to change just by listening, subscribe to the channel now. That way you won't miss the next videos, and you'll help this message reach more people who are also trapped behind lenses of scarcity. Now let's move to the third practice. This one is called quantum anchoring. It works like this. Choose an object you use every day. It could be a bracelet, a ring, or even your phone. Every time you look at this object, use it as a trigger to ask yourself, how would my prosperous version observe this right now? This simple act of anchoring creates new circuits in your brain and trains you to remain in the state of the abundant observer for longer. Over time, this stops being an exercise and becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, you've already made the leap. Because remember, prosperity is not the result of a race. Prosperity is the reflection of the one who observes. And now to conclude, I want to leave you with a question that can change everything. If you were a neutral observer looking at your life from the outside, what would you say to yourself today? This is the question that begins to open doors you never even noticed existed before. If this video made sense to you, leave your comment below writing, I choose to be the observer of abundance. By doing so, you reaffirm this decision to yourself and to the universe, and share this video with someone who needs this key. You could be the bridge to someone else's quantum leap, because in the end, it's not about chasing prosperity, it's about observing until it reveals itself. You've noticed that up to now we've talked a lot about the act of observing, but we haven't yet explored the depth of this concept. The observer is not just the person who sees. The observer is the consciousness behind the gaze. It is the silent point within you that perceives everything but is none of what it perceives. This is where the power lies. Because as long as you believe you are just your bills, your job, your past, you remain limited. But when you access this place of the pure observer, you become the creator of reality. Quantum physics shows that the simple act of observation alters the outcome of an experiment. And if it alters things at the subatomic level, it also alters them at the level of your life. Now think with me. If you were just the sum of your financial problems, they would have already destroyed you. But you are still here, listening to this, seeking something greater. This means there is a part of you that has always been untouched. That is the observer. And it is from this point that you create prosperity effortlessly. But maybe you're asking yourself, if it's so simple, why can't I change? The answer is, because you were trained from an early age to observe the world from a place of scarcity. School teaches you that you need to compete. Society shows you that only a select few succeed. The media reinforces that crisis and lack are everywhere. You were programmed to observe lack, but what has been learned can be unlearned. This is where the most powerful practice comes in, the daily reprogramming of observation. It works like this. Choose 3 fixed moments in your day. It could be upon waking, at lunchtime, and before sleeping. At each of these moments, pause for 30 seconds and say out loud, "I choose to observe abundance now." By saying this, you interrupt the autopilot of scarcity and train your mind to create new pathways. It may seem small, but this 90-second-a-day discipline transforms your perception in just a few weeks. It's like going to the gym for your consciousness. At first, you feel resistance. Then, you start to notice new muscles in the way you think, decide, and act. I want to tell you another true story. A woman wrote to me saying she was in debt with no prospects and everything seemed lost. She began to apply this simple exercise of conscious observation. In a short time, she realized she was seeing opportunities in places she had previously ignored. She found an extra source of income by offering something she had always known how to do, but had never observed as valuable. In 3 months, she paid off part of her debts and, more importantly, regained hope. She told me, "The money came, but the clarity came first." That is the power of the observer. Now, I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine you're in a movie theater. On the screen, a film of your financial life is playing. Debts, bills, effort, worries. You're sitting there watching. The film seems so real that you forget it's just a movie. But suddenly, you decide to get up and walk to the projection booth. Inside, you realize the film only exists because someone is projecting the light. That light is you. Without it, the film would have no form. This is being the observer. When you realize you are the light, not just the character on the screen, you understand that you can change the movie. And perhaps most powerfully, you don't need to fight with the old movie. You simply choose to project a new one. This is why prosperity happens effortlessly. The effort is in fighting with the screen. Mastery lies in changing the projector. Now let's move to an advanced exercise. I call it quantum projection. Before you sleep tonight, close your eyes and imagine yourself observing the version of you that already lives in abundance. See how he or she walks, talks, breathes. Don't force anything, just observe. And before falling asleep, say, "I am the observer of this reality. Tomorrow I walk in this frequency." This practice connects your subconscious to the abundant version, and upon waking, you already start the day aligned. I want you to write down this sentence. The observer doesn't chase, they attract by the simple fact of observing differently. This is the key that transforms your entire relationship with money. And now, one more reflection. Have you ever noticed how young children observe the world? They don't see limits, they see possibilities. They value simple things, create entire worlds with a cardboard box. This is the purity of the observer. Over time, we lost this ability, replacing it with fear and control. But when you reclaim that childlike gaze, not naive but pure, you once again see opportunities that were always there. At this moment, I want to ask something of you. If this video is bringing you clarity, click the share button and send it to someone you love. Sometimes all it takes is a new lens for someone to break free from years of being blocked, and you can be the bridge. And remember, prosperity doesn't come when you conquer something outside, but when you change who is observing within. You have already understood that the observer changes reality, but how does this happen in practice? Science gives us clues. In quantum physics, there is a phenomenon called the Power double slit experiment. In it, subatomic particles behave like waves when they are not observed, but when someone observes, the particle chooses a position. This means that physical reality only organizes itself based on conscious observation. Now think, if this happens with particles, which make up everything that exists, the same principle applies to your life. The way you observe your financial situation determines how it materializes. This isn't magic, it's physics. The problem is that you learn to always observe the worst-case scenario, the debt, the scarcity, the fear, and that is what manifests. This is where psychology comes in. There is a part of the brain called the Reticular Activating System. It works like a filter. You only perceive what you believe in. If you believe the world is scarce, you will filter only evidence of scarcity. If you believe the world is abundant, you will filter opportunities, connections, ideas. In other words, you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. This is the turning point. You don't need to change the world. You need to change the observer that you are. Now, to make this even clearer, imagine the following metaphor. Your mind is like a mirror. If the mirror is dirty, you look at it and only see distortions, smudges, confusing shapes. That dirty mirror is the lens of scarcity. But as you clean the mirror, that is, change your observation, you begin to reflect reality more purely. What was always there, but you couldn't see, is now revealed. And here comes the first intermediate exercise. I call it the Chait Observer's Diary. Take a notebook and every day write down one experience that you would have previously called a problem, but now describe it as a hidden opportunity. For example, if you lost a client, instead of writing, I lost a contract, write, space has opened up for a more aligned client. This practice reprograms your mind to observe life through the lens of abundance. I want you to realize something. Effortless prosperity is not the absence of action. It's about acting from the right place. When you change the observer, your actions are no longer driven by fear, but are guided by clarity. It's like rowing with the flow of the river instead of against it. Now, let's turn to a powerful story. A scientist named Albert Einstein used to say that imagination is more important than knowledge. Why? Because imagination is the ability to observe the invisible. Many of humanity's greatest inventions were born from someone who observed a possibility that no one else saw. The same is true for prosperity. You don't create money out of thin air. You observe a way to generate value where others only see a blockage. This brings us to the advanced exercise. Quantum observation of identity. Choose a quiet moment in your day, close your eyes, and imagine you are standing in front of a mirror. But instead of seeing the current version of you, see the version that already lives in full prosperity. Observe the finest details, how this version walks, how they talk, how they look at the world. And then ask yourself, what would this version of me choose today? This simple question begins to align your decisions with your prosperous identity effortlessly. And here is the key. Prosperity isn't what you achieve, it's what you embody. Now perhaps you're thinking, this sounds nice, but does it really work? The answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. When you change the way you observe, your brain activates new neural pathways. This alters your posture, your energy, and even the way other people respond to you. That's why someone with a scarcity mindset can have incredible opportunities and waste them, while someone with an abundance mindset turns any detail into gold. But I'll go further. Prosperity is not just about money, it's about the energy you carry. A person who observes life with gratitude and confidence opens doors that money alone could never open. Money is just a reflection of the consciousness you sustain. Therefore, I want you to write down this sentence and keep it. I don't seek prosperity, I am prosperity. This is the observer's secret. And before we continue, allow me to ask for something. If this message is making sense to you, if it's already clearing your mind, click subscribe on the channel now and activate notifications. This way, you'll ensure you receive the next pieces of content and help this knowledge reach more people. Sis, have you ever noticed that there are people who, even when they lose everything, manage to get back on their feet quickly, and others who, even when they receive a large sum of money, end up losing it all in a short time? This doesn't happen by chance. This is identity. Identity is like an invisible thermostat that controls your financial life. Imagine your internal thermostat is set to 20 degrees. If the environment gets hotter, the system automatically works to cool it down. If it gets too cold, it heats up. But the end result is always the same, 20 degrees. The same thing happens with your financial life. If your identity is programmed for scarcity, even if you earn a lot of money, you will soon find ways to return to your previous level. This isn't bad luck. It's the observer in action. You can only manifest what you believe you are. Here is the secret. Abundance is not in what you have. It's in who you are. When you identify as someone who is always struggling for money, the quantum field responds to that observer and confirms your belief. But when you identify as someone to whom money flows naturally, the universe reorganizes circumstances to reflect that observation. And you might ask, but how do I change my financial identity? The first step is to stop using phrases that reinforce the struggle. How many times have you told yourself, money is hard to earn, I have to fight hard to have anything, or I have bad luck with money? These words are not neutral. They are commands that your subconscious receives as absolute truth. And the subconscious is the operator of the quantum field. It doesn't question, it simply manifests what you observe and repeat. So here is a practical exercise that can transform your identity. Replace all scarcity phrases with affirmations of a prosperous identity. But pay attention, these are not phrases of desire. They are phrases of being. Don't say, I want to be rich. Say, I am someone to whom money comes with ease. This difference is crucial because the quantum field doesn't respond to what you desire, but to who you are. Now, I will share a powerful metaphor with you. Imagine you are playing a role in a stage play. While you are on stage, you are the character. The audience believes it because you believe it. Your financial identity works the same way. You need to step into the role of abundance until it is no longer a role and becomes your natural reality. And don't think this is pretending. This is how your brain learns. Neuroscience calls this neural plasticity. By repeating new ways of thinking, speaking, and acting, you literally reconfigure your neural network. Over time, this repetition ceases to be an effort and becomes automatic. Now reflect. Who are you being today? The observer who struggles, or the observer who flows? The character of scarcity or the protagonist of abundance? This is where the second advanced exercise comes in, the letter from the future identity. Write a letter as if you are the version of you who already lives in full prosperity. In this letter, describe your routine, your achievements, your feelings. Write in the present tense, as if it were already real. Today I woke up in my dream home. My schedule is filled only with commitments that bring me joy. People recognize me for the value I generate. Money circulates easily in my life. This exercise changes the observer from the inside out. And, sir, I want to emphasize a crucial detail. Prosperity is not about accumulating, but about expanding. When you change your financial identity, you not only receive more, but you also begin to share more. This is true prosperity, a flow that never runs dry because it is not stuck. It is in constant motion. But understand, this doesn't mean living in illusion. It means living with clarity. It means aligning the way you observe the world with the highest version of who you already are. And here I want to ask something of you who are listening to me now. If this content is touching something deep within you, subscribe to the channel now. Together, we can create a community of people who choose to live by the consciousness of abundance, not by the fear of scarcity. Have you ever stopped to think about how much the environment influences the way you observe the world? Maybe you're trying hard, attempting to change your mindset, repeating affirmations, but you remain surrounded by people who are always complaining about life, saying money is hard to come by, that everything is expensive, that prosperity is only for a few. This environment acts like a resonant magnet that pulls your observation back to scarcity. In quantum physics, there is a principle called vibrational resonance. Objects that vibrate at the same frequency tend to synchronize. Have you ever seen two pendulums side by side that, after a while, begin to move in the same rhythm? That's exactly what happens with your mind and your environment. Even if you want to vibrate prosperity, if the environment around you vibrates scarcity, in a short time, you are pulled into that same frequency. Therefore, one of the greatest secrets of the observer is to take care of the environment you are in. This doesn't mean abandoning people, but it means consciously choosing where you place your attention. Every conversation, every news report, every negative comment is like an adjustment to your observational lens. And remember, what you observe, you manifest. Now think with me. How many hours of your day do you spend absorbing content that reinforces scarcity? News of crises, political arguments, soap opera dramas, conversations full of complaints. All of this feeds the mind with images of lack. And then you wonder why it's so hard to manifest prosperity. Here is a practical exercise. For the next 7 days, carefully select what you will observe. This includes the videos you watch, the music you listen to, the people you talk to. Fill your mind with examples of abundance, stories of overcoming adversity, content that elevates your energy. You will notice how your lens begins to adjust naturally to see possibilities where you once only saw problems. And make no mistake, This adjustment of your environment can be the turning point between remaining stuck in scarcity and leaping into abundance, because you don't become just what you think, you also become what you repeatedly observe. Now, to give more strength to this point, I will share a true story. In a famous experiment at Harvard University, two groups of students were placed in different environments for just 1 week. One group was exposed daily to content of optimism, innovation, and stories of prosperity. The other group watched negative news, crisis reports, and conversations about economic difficulties. The result was impressive. The first group not only reported much higher levels of well-being and confidence, but also performed better on creativity tests and even in simulated business negotiations. The environment completely changed the way they observed reality, and consequently their results. Now I ask you, which group have you been feeding within yourself? Upon understanding the influence of the environment, it is natural to advance to an even deeper point, the practical training of conscious observation. Most people think that changing their reality only requires thinking positively, but that is superficial. True change comes from the quality and consistency of your attention. An advanced exercise is that of inverted observation. It works like this. Every time you notice a thought of scarcity, don't fight against it, don't try to suppress it. Instead, observe it from the outside, as if it were a visitor in your mind. Say mentally, "Interesting, my old self still thinks that way." By doing this, you place yourself in the position of the conscious observer, separating your real identity from old beliefs. Over time, these thoughts lose their power because you no longer identify with them. Another powerful exercise is that of quantum visualization with induced emotion. It's not enough to just imagine yourself rich. You must feel, in your body, the state of being of someone who already lives in prosperity. To do this, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and remember a moment when you felt deeply grateful. It can be something simple, a hug, an achievement, an experience of joy. Amplify this feeling until it fills your entire body. Now, within this emotional state, visualize the scene of your ideal financial reality. Your home, your lifestyle, your free choices. This combination of elevated emotion plus mental image is what the quantum field responds to, not just to an empty desire. There is also the practice of aligned micro-actions. Many people want prosperity but live in disorder. The way you take care of your wallet, your workspace, your phone directly reflects your relationship with abundance. If you treat money with carelessness, you are reinforcing the observation that it is of little importance. So start with small actions. Organize your finances. Keep your wallet clean. Treat every coin as if it were precious. This sends a clear message to the universe: I am someone who honors the flow of money. These exercises may seem simple, but together they create an invisible force capable of reprogramming your internal observer. It's not about magic, but about consistency. The mind needs repetition and emotional intensity to create new patterns. And here comes a crucial point. Real stories of transformation show the power of this. There was a woman named Sarah who lived in debt, always believing that money was the enemy. She started only with the exercise of the letter from the future identity. At first it seemed artificial, but she persisted. Months later she found the courage to accept a job offer she had always refused out of fear. In less than a year she got out of debt and started her own business. Nothing mystical happened, just a change in the internal observer that made her finally see and accept opportunities that had always been there. Another story, of a businessman named Miguel, shows how the environment and resonance are decisive. He was surrounded by pessimistic partners, always repeating that the market is saturated. When he decided to step away from that circle and sought new partnerships with people who vibrated innovation, his company experienced a leap in revenue. The market hadn't changed that much, but he changed the lens through which he observed it, and that opened previously invisible doors. These examples are not exceptions. They show that the key is always in the same foundation: what you repeatedly observe, what you identify with, what you feel in the present, becomes your manifest reality. Now imagine your life as a grand stage. For years you believed you were just reacting to a script written by external circumstances, debts, crises, limitations. But the secret we are revealing is that you are not just an actor. You are also the director, the projector of the light, the creator of the scenery. The observer within you, is the key that changes everything. Throughout this video, we've seen that effortless prosperity is not passivity. It's not just wishing or repeating phrases. It's about aligning your consciousness with the reality you want to experience. It's about training your mind to observe opportunities, feel abundance, act according to that perception, and carefully choose the environment that sustains that observation. It's about getting into the frequency of abundance, like a musician tuning their instrument to play the perfect note. Each exercise we have presented, the morning pause of conscious observation, the observer's diary, quantum anchoring, the letter from the future identity, the quantum projection before sleep, are not mere tools. They are mechanisms to realign your energy so that you become an observer who manifests prosperity naturally. What you once did with effort and tension now flows with clarity and purpose. Remember the stories we shared. Sarah, who transformed debt into financial freedom. Miguel, who changed his circle and multiplied opportunities. The businessman who stopped struggling and started seeing invisible connections that already existed. These cases show that what prevents prosperity are not the circumstances, but the way you observe reality. So the final question I leave with you is, if abundance already exists, and you only need to adjust the lens through which you observe, what are you waiting for to change the way you look? How will you place yourself in the position of the conscious observer starting today? And here is a special invitation. If this video has brought you clarity, inspiration, or awakened something within you, subscribe to the channel now and activate notifications. Share this content with someone who needs to understand the power of the observer, because every person who changes their way of observing influences the reality around them. Leave in the comments, "I choose to be the observer of abundance." By writing this, you reinforce the commitment to yourself and to the universe. To finish, remember the words of Wayne Dyer, which resonate deeply with everything we have discussed. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The observer doesn't chase, the observer attracts, the observer creates. And from this day forward, sir, you have the power to be that observer, to open your life to the prosperity that has always existed, but which only now you are beginning to see with clarity.